1954, I was a student at the University of Massachusetts, a poultry major, and not quite sure what I eventually wanted to do. And there was a young professor who came in, an individual by the name of Donald Anderson, who was a member of ASN as well. But he came in as a poultry nutritionist, and I was fortunate enough to get a job in his laboratory at the time, and that really exposed me to nutrition. And Don was such a great mentor that I knew that's what I wanted to be, and that's what I wanted to do. And so he mentored me through my senior year and helped me to get to graduate school. And so I ended up going to Rutgers, and a young professor who had just gotten his PhD at the University of Illinois was there, a man by the name of Hans Fischer. And I was his second graduate student, and it was just a phenomenal relationship. And it was clear, the path was very clear to me as to what I wanted to do. Well, interestingly, I ended up doing a project that spanned both nutrition and food science, in that it focused on altering food products. So my work was focused on modifying hens' eggs so that they would have more polyunsaturated fatty acids in them and hopefully would reduce blood cholesterol. And that put me into a situation where I had to collaborate with people who were doing clinical research so they could test the product in human subjects. So that was one of my first exposures to clinical research. Well, I was, again, very fortunate in that I owed the Army some time, and I had gotten deferments through graduate school. And so I joined the military as soon as I got my PhD. But was lucky in that I was assigned to the Army's Nutrition Research Laboratory in Denver, Colorado. And it was a phenomenal experience because we had the opportunity to do clinical research with human subjects. And so I, again, had that opportunity to spend a lot of time doing that work, also running a biochemistry laboratory. And I did that for 2 years in the military, and then was able to stay in the same position as a civilian for another 3 years. Oh, well, there's quite a few over the years, but some of my research, obviously, I pioneered a lot of work in comparative biology, comparative nutrition, working with a variety of different species of animals and looking at differences in terms of the impact of nutrition on their metabolic rates, looking at energy expenditure and related to what is now a major problem of obesity. And so that was an area of real interest to me, and I think an area where we managed to accomplish some significant things. But probably if I had to select the single thing that I think was an accomplishment for me, was getting my peers who elected me to be president of AIN in those days, what is now ASN, and as well as IFT. So I think that's correct, that I'm at the present time, the only person who has been president of both societies. And so I've continued that effort at trying to bridge the gap between food science and nutrition. Yes, there are a great many, because historically what has happened is that nutritionists will determine what people should eat or what diets they should have, and then they sort of toss this over the wall to the food scientists to develop products that people can consume. And then they toss those back to the nutritionist, and this is how it works. So what we've really been trying to do is to demolish that wall between the two disciplines, and get people to understand that by talking to each other, communicating better, this whole field can move much more quickly. And fortunately, we've made some progress. And one of the accomplishments in that area is a task force that started in IFT, the Institute of Food Technologists, but now has expanded so that there are partners, a number of partners, including ASN, the Dietetic Association, and a couple of other groups, including IFIC and possibly ILSI coming on board. So that consortium of societies is now focusing on common problems, and I think that's will be a major step in trying to get some resolution. I don't know that there's a big topic other than, I guess it would be the role of nutrition in food in terms of health maintenance and getting people to not necessarily live longer, although that would be desirable, but to have a more productive life for their whole lifespan. And it is so encouraging to look at the new technologies that are now coming out that will enable this to happen. So you look at genomics, you look at what's happening in nanotechnology, and it's a very exciting, brave new world that we have out there. And what I usually tell students when I get an opportunity to talk to them is that, I wish I was starting all over again, because it is such an exciting field with the technology that's now becoming available. I enjoy talking to students, and usually what I tell them is that that's not a choice that they necessarily need to make at any point while they're still students. That what they ought to be doing is preparing themselves to be the best professional that they can. And whether they ultimately decide to apply that in an academic area or in industry, in the private sector, I think is really immaterial. The same skills are needed. I've been fortunate in having spent about half my career in the academic world and the other half in the private sector. And the challenges are a bit different in some cases, but really it's not that the preparation has to be different. So as students, I would encourage people to be the best scientists that they can be, and then when they finish their degrees, then probably the job environment is what's going to decide where they begin, but they're not necessarily locked into one path or the other.